Oh, the Monday Night War review, we'll decide on that name later, with the incomparable Lissy Almeida and John Jacobs, the much better of the two JJs. So yeah, I'm Jack Milner, having to look at the Fall Brawl from 1996. And John, you were saying that's the first time you've ever seen a WCW pay-per-view from start to finish. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm going to come into a lot of these as the least knowledgeable of the three, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I actually thought it fell away a little bit towards the end. I wasn't a big fan of the final two matches, but I was really impressed with like the level of wrestling on the show. Like, you see the names that are on the card, they're names that we still know today, some of which are still active today. Seeing them, even like we had Jericho in his first ever pay-per-view match, you can see why he's someone that's been around for 25, 30 years and still doing amazing things at a high level. So yeah, I thought it was a decent pay-per-view for my first ever foray from start to finish for a WCW pay-per-view. There you go. Said it in the end.
Wonderful word. I mean, for me, it was a bit like my main memories of say 97, 98 as a WWF fan, as like a 11, 12-year-old kid. The mid card was awful, and you had things like the head, no disrespect, like the headbangers, DOA and Los Barricas, but the main event was always a massive popper. You've got Brett working against someone, or you got Austin, and you got Shawn Michael Undertaker. Whereas for WCW, the mid card was very well fleshed out, lots of good matches. Then the main event was just a bit flat. Do you agree with that, Lisa?
Yeah, definitely. I think
first of all, stand up, show us a shirt.
You know what team I'm on. Yeah, I mean, definitely the mid-card in WCW was just so impressive, especially in the 90s. And I really love that they had a lot of versatility. I mean, they had folks coming up from AAA and, battling with Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrero, which is amazing. But I think, also, like you said, the main event, this was the beginning of that time when the main event in like the end of WCW was just absolute chaos. And that's really, I think that's something that they definitely became known for, during that NWO and after area.
I mean, it was just really strange how it was just a really flat ending. And I thought Sting, we'll get to the main event later, but Sting was, you could tell the wheels were in motion. They were planning where they were going with this direction without really giving too many clues away. But yeah, the fact it was Winston-Salem, it was Horseman country. Yeah, Flair got a massive reception. Tim with AA, Benoit was a Horseman at the time. Apparently, it was a bit flat in pieces, but we'll try and attack it. I suppose match for match. The opener was Diamond Dallas Page against Chavo Guerrero. Good opener. DDP went over the Diamond Cutter, and I think we were saying before recording, DDP, man, he was still working proper 90s shtick with the sparkly waistcoat, the glasses, the cigar. He still wasn't there yet, was he? Would you say, JJ? I don't know how much you know about him. In the 97, he becomes the people's champion, if you like, attacking the NWO by himself. But he was still very much a gimmick at this point.
Yeah, I mean, again, coming into this a little bit blind, I was trying to figure my way through it based on, the story that the commentary team were telling me. There was no...
You're going to be such a blank canvas for the next 12 months.
This is going to be great. I'm like, you get my side of it, who knows nothing and is coming in completely blank, and you're obviously the oracle this year, I think, maybe somewhere in between. And yeah, I was just trying to figure out the story as we went. You knew instantly as soon as Diamond Dallas Page comes down to the ring, goes to high five a fan, and he goes, "Nah, see you later, idiot." Boom, heel, tossing a cigar, beautiful. And it was like a really cool hot opener to kick off the match. They just threw themselves at each other. Chavo doesn't really look like he's aged that much, does he, in 25 years? Looks pretty similar, just a little bit more hair on him. And yeah, flying around the ring. I was impressed by this match, and it was one of the few matches, especially in this mid card. Obviously the main event had it, but that had a proper heel face dynamic. I felt like a lot of these matches sort of were a bit lost as to who was who, but with this, you definitely knew who you were cheering for and who you were booing,
Yeah, and listen, I don't know about you. I was a big fan of the white trunks on Chavo. I mean, he looked like he was being the super fiery baby face, trying to get the crowd, but he looked so young, and at the same time hasn't aged at all. Same with that, he looks brilliant there.
Yeah, I like how I think we heard on the commentary a lot. Chavo was being billed as, the baby of the Guerrero family, like, inexperienced and things like that. When obviously we know that he grew up in the business and, probably grew up wrestling with all his, uncles, cousins, etc. But anyway, I love that look on him, and it really just shows, the progress that he made too. And he looks just as, I'm pretty sure he could probably still go just as good as he did like that today. But on the DDP side of things, I loved this DDP because he was kind of starting to come into his own too. Like, he comes down with the cigar, he had those beautiful blonde curls. Like, this was like just before he became the DDP that, we really loved and that all the people got behind.
Yeah, I think if I know my timelines correctly, it was January 13th, WCW was in the Superdome in New Orleans, and he got himself an NWO shirt, agrees with it, and then Diamond Cutters, Kevin Nash, and leaves with the crowd. And that was when he really started to become, DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, and the massive fan favorite. So interesting to see how that goes in the next few months. The second match, not so great. I didn't know the backstory behind it. It was Ice Train with Teddy Long. I think Teddy Long was only there as a manager for the next 3 or 4 months, and 6 months later, he's a referee at WWF. So very interesting career for the Holla Holla top time player for Teddy Long. But yeah, he beat Scott Norton in a really weird submission match. And if you don't know Scott Norton, he was a hoss of a guy. He was big deal in Japan. He was one of the top gaijin in all Japan around this time. But yeah, JJ, had you ever seen these two before? What did you make of these two big meaty men slapping meat?
My only familiarity with this match was Teddy Long, and I was surprised to see him put his guy in a straight singles match, not a 6-man tag match. Very unusual for him. But yeah, I actually had to look up these guys a little bit so that see that they were in a tag team together, and then they broke up for whatever reason, ended up having a bit of a feud. It was what it was. It was a strange one, wasn't it? Because the ref had a mic. He kept asking them if they wanted to quit, and then Norton just decided to tap out to end it. I didn't really understand what was going on. I quite liked Ice Train. He's a bit of a unit. He kind of reminded me of Big E, but without the charisma. But yeah, it was a perfectly fine match. Nice seeing Teddy Long in a slightly different role to what I'm used to seeing him in. But yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, and let's say, what did you make of the two big guys? How familiar were you with? I think he also went by the name M.I. Ice. I think he might have been in Misfits in Action. Am I Smooth? Ice Train and Scott Norton, two unheralded stars of the early 90s.
Yeah, I remember from my childhood, for a very short period of time, like you said, they were a tag team, if I'm not mistaken, Fire and Ice, and that was they had a good little run, but nothing crazy. Scott Norton, just knowing his history, where he came from, the Minnesota area, he came up with, a lot of big guys at that time. So, I know he has a big reputation for being a big, strong guy, tough. Same thing with Ice Train. I love Teddy Long as a manager. He's very entertaining just in general, but it just shows he can do anything. He's a ref, he's a manager, he's a GM, he's, whatever you need him to be, he's going to do that. And he has a little bit of entertainment on the side. I did like that they had Scott tap out with the full Nelson though, which is, a big man putting another big man in a full Nelson is
old school, that, yeah.
so old school. So I definitely did enjoy that part of things, but could have been a quicker match in my opinion. And I was surprised that it was a submission match as well. I don't think of the two of them as technicians when they come to mind, but interesting format.
Yeah, interesting format. Scott Norton, if you listen to a lot of the guys from WCW around the time, they said Scott Norton, like, he was an absolute beast for dude. Like, never lost a bar fight. One of those typical. You mentioned the Minnesota connection. I think the Road Warriors, Nikita Koloff, a lot of the guys from there, they were broke in the business the hard way, if you will. So yeah, good guy. Didn't really have that charisma that made him get over to the next level. Unlike the winner of the next match, Konnan, weirdly enough, with Jimmy Hart, that was the most weirdest pairing I think I've ever seen as a manager. And you mentioned Ice Train and Teddy Long, Konnan with Jimmy Hart. Come on, baby, you gotta be in next time. Really strange. Beat Juventud Guerrero, we saw just last month on back on TNT, being defeated by Chris Jericho. So another one with serious longevity. Lissy, what did you make of Konnan versus Juventud, the first of several decent little luchador matches?
Yeah, I completely had forgotten that Konnan was a part of Jimmy's stable at the time, and like you said, it was kind of a shocker. I'm like, it's a motley crew if I ever saw one, but okay. Side note on Jimmy Hart, I love his gear. He just puts so much into it. I love that, he's so animated. He gets into that, adds a lot to the overall story of things. But this was the beginning of Konnan with his whole cholo look, which I really enjoyed. I think he brought it back to the streets, which was nice to see. Juvi was so young here too. It's so scary to see him. He was a much smaller guy. I think he was about 20 or 21 years old at the time. Just very impressive match. I mean, these guys, they went at it. How long was the match? Maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so. So they really let them put on, something closer to what we are used to as like the lucha libre style, which was nice to see. And I think, at that time, Konnan was just so over, in Mexico and in Latin America. So like I said, I always love the crossover appeal. So always good to see that.
And yeah, there's been so many parallels between WCW and AEW these days. And one of these, from the first few matches, you think, they always talk about always talk of the forbidden door with AEW. And you look at this, Scott Norton, there's a serious New Japan guy. You've got the AAA championship here between Konnan and Juventud, Rey Mysterio, Benoit, again, another guy that Benoit and Jericho wrestled in Mexico and Japan. There were so many different things going on in WCW at the time that you can see Tony Khan almost taking little snippets here and there from. So, weird to see the parallels 25 years on. I'm guessing, JJ, this is the first time you'd have seen Konnan properly in ring from back in the day. What do you make of him? You could actually go. He's a big guy as well, but you put some timber on by then.
I love this match. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was so cool. Like, Juventud Guerrero just like flying around the ring. It was amazing that they had the two rings and he was just flying back and forth, like doing the jump, like flying into Konnan. And Konnan as well, like he was kind of the big guy, like it's like the big guy versus the speed kind of thing. But he was also pretty quick as well. Like he had the power and he had the speed as well. I think it was Bobby Heenan that was saying on commentary, like he can do everything that Hoovy can do, not quite, but he can do it harder and tougher, and that's why he's going to win, and that's what going through ultimately. But yeah, I thought it was awesome, and it was interesting that you say about the parallels between WCW and AEW, because what struck me was just how many people on this show we've seen in the last few months on AEW. Obviously, we opened up with Tony Schiavone, and then you've got Sting, and you've got Arn Anderson. We might be seeing Ric Flair there at some point soon. Hoovy, obviously, there was Jericho. How can we forget him? So, yeah, there was a lot of people that on this match, on this card 25 years ago, that are still knocking around today in one way or another. So, good to see.
And again, just going back, Konnan came to the WWF in 91, I think. And again, it's almost a bit like Night Following Day. He was made into Max Moon. If you've ever seen the gimmick, he was dressed up like a bit of a children's superhero. WCW let him go on. What gimmick do you call him? Was it La Cholo? What's the style you attribute to him?
Oh, yeah, I think that's what they call it. Like, it's like a cholo, like Mexican style dress, with the plaid and the wife beater underneath, the really baggy pants, very, very popular on the West Coast.
He looks at the level of coolness I could only hope to achieve. But yeah, so he looked like he had a lot of swagger. You think, blimey, that guy's the tits. So yeah, great match. Konnan played this big guy role very well. Hoovy bumped around like an absolute machine, and great to see. I said, just that finisher looked really, really tough to take. It was like a weird version behind an outsider's edge, or Razor's Edge even, and a power bomb. He just absolutely dropped him like a you-know-what. So, great match. And likewise, the next one as well, Benoit versus Jericho. Chris Jericho's first ever match on pay-per-view in North America. Benoit got a great reception from the Horsemen, faithful crowd in Winston-Salem. Great match. Benoit was so stiff, man. Just a little bit of inside baseball. We messaged off air saying, what do we do about Benoit matches? Do we mention him? Do we cover him? As a kid, Benoit was one of my favorites. He was so intense. He was stiff. He was believable. He was credible, and he made Jericho look really good to him. And I thought it was really noticeable that Bobby Heenan and Dusty Rhodes, which again, an amazing three-man booth with Tony, they were really keen to stress that he kind of got over in defeat. And I think Bobby in particular was saying, he lost, but he's gone toe-to-toe with the Crippler for 15 minutes. And JJ, I'm guessing, what do you make of that? Because for me, it was match of the night. I popped my tits off.
Yeah, I think this and the Juventud Guerrero Konnan match were my two matches, and I'd probably give the edge to this one. And it's like you were saying the parallels before with AEW, the way that they kind of get some of the young guys, thinking like Dante Martin and people like that, they put them in the ring with huge names. They lose, but they look good in losing, and that's what you had from Jericho here. Like, he was resilient. He took a lot of offense from Benoit, but he got in his own stuff as well. He showed what he can do in the ring. And like I said earlier, you can see why he became the guy that's been around for the next 25 years since, and still having huge matches on big pay-per-views. Yeah, I really enjoyed this match. The fans loved Benoit at the time. It was weird because Chris Jericho was kind of trying to play the babyface as well, but the crowd was like, "Yeah, I don't care. We like Benoit. We're not cheering for you." It was kind of like a face-to-face kind of little match, but obviously he turned that around pretty quickly and got himself over with the fans. So yeah, really, really cool match.
And I think with Benoit, he was such a, I don't say throw, but again, the Carolinas are such Crockett territory, the old school wrestling. They like the physicality, and Benoit was, banging his chops where you could hear them from probably, back in the bleachers. He was very legitimate, very credible. Lissy, does it make you feel a little bit old knowing it was 25 years ago that this pay-per-view, that match?
Listen, it makes me feel ancient. I think this is definitely one of those instant classics. I mean, Jericho, Benoit, like you said, this was Crockett country. These are true wrestling fans, and they really put on a true wrestling match, which was great. The two of them can, either of them could go in and wrestle a broom and make it look good. So we were in for a real treat with this one. Definitely match of the night for me. Just knowing their story. They both came from Canada. They both, trained really closely together, worked in Japan together, etc. I think these two just know each other so well, and they can do anything. They could do anything together in the ring. And like you said, didn't know how we were going to approach the Benoit situation, but just, we have to let his ring work speak for itself, and everything else is opinion and a lot of unknowns after that. But top match for me.
Hey, we'll echo those sentiments. We'll try and do justice going forward. The next match, again, very, very strong pay-per-view card, stat card. The next match was the WCW World Cruiserweight title. Again, Rey Mysterio, he looked so young here. He's so babyface. He's not really, I don't think he necessarily, I don't want to put any accusations, but he seems to get physically slightly bigger within the next 3 or 4 years, especially before his WWE, I think, debut in early 2003. But yeah, so young. He beats Super Calo to defend the Cruiserweight title. I adored the finish. It was, watching him, I just get so many comparisons to Rey Fenix, just the way they're able to bounce off the ropes. I think he won the match with the double springboard. I want to call it a Frankensteiner. I don't know what the other names are, but it was just bang, bang, bang. It looked amazing. And again, Rey, I think he was 23 here, 22. Man, it just makes me feel old to know he was doing this at such a young age. And he's still going strong today with the next generation. So, JJ, what do you make of the match? Because Rey looked a superstar here.
Yeah, you mentioned the age. I checked this out actually because they were talking on the commentary about the young Super Calo, like it was his first big match after coming over from AAA. Young guy, might be a little bit nervous. He was 25. He's 4 years older than Rey Mysterio. He was 21 when this pay-per-view was on, and I was just like, wow. And he's the kind of veteran in this match really, because he's been on WCW pay-per-views. He's holding that cruiserweight title. He's had the big matches with Dean Malenko and stuff like that. So, another great match to utilize those two rings. I think that they chose some good matches and picked out some good spots. And like you say, the way that it ended with the double rope hop, Frankenstein kind of thing off the top rope. Yeah, really impressive. They were just springing back and forth between those two rings. They mentioned in the first match, I think, that I don't know what happens if they go into the ring. These guys just didn't care. They were just back and forth for the whole sort of 15-20 minutes that they were having this match. Really impressed. And I was quite impressed with Super Calo as well. I'd never seen him before, but I had looked him up and didn't really seem to do anything in North America after that. Went back to AAA, and we didn't really see too much more of him. So kind of surprised by that.
That was the first time I'd ever seen Super Calo. Mike Tenay never ceases to amaze me just in terms of his knowledge. And he's saying, "Oh yeah, he got his name from this Mexican pop group, and they had him in the ring with him." Like, this is 1996. How do you know this, Mike? There's no internet. It's just ridiculous. And but yeah, I'd never heard of him before. He looked good, but like watching the match, they say Rey looks a star out of the two. In most matches, you can see he's got it and he doesn't, which is what throws back to a lot of the WCW worldwides and say Fire and Ice with Scott Norton being the standout of the two. But Rey was just 21 years old, amazing even then.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about the Cruiserweight title in WCW, number one immediately goes straight to Rey Mysterio. I mean, he was really like the face of that brand, in the mid to late 90s, definitely. Super Calo, like, I had never seen him or heard of him or anything like that, but what an interesting mask. I definitely noticed that. And it had like a hat built into it too.
It was like sunglasses there, and like he looked like Karrion Kross's new mask, what he's wearing now.
Yeah. And like the hat, I don't know if the hat was like on his head or just part of it. I'm not sure. But anyway, very unique. Wanted to point that out. This was definitely pure Lucha Libre style. I really enjoyed it. I love that they brought Mike Tenay in, because being able to like you said, for him to come in and tell that story and give the background, because folks don't know who these people are. So he helps to build them up and give them the credentials and show, they've been doing this in AAA for X amount of time. So that was really good. It definitely, they definitely went at it. And when I think about this, it makes me feel even older, but Rey Mysterio at that time is the age that his son is now. And he's tagging with his son. It just really shows like the longevity of his career and how he's been performing at such a high level for literally like the last 30 years. It's insane.
Do you think that's a detriment to his son as well? If you look at how good Rey is here at his age, and how Dominic, without being too disparaging, is nowhere near that level yet. They're trying to put in, hey, he's his son, that's his dad, a bit of the rope, as it were. It's just, whenever I've seen Dominic Mysterio, I don't think he has it. And when you go back and watch matches of Rey, they said you think you're never going to be as good as your old man.
Yeah, it's not even fair sometimes to compare. I think you see this not just with wrestlers, but just with athletes in general, or with someone who has a famous parent that's a musician or actor, superstar, whatever. It doesn't matter. That talent and whatever that it factor, whether the desire is there or it isn't, it doesn't always pass to that second generation. So, I mean, I think Dominic Mysterio, for what he is, I think he is good. I think he's very talented. I think he has, the athletic ability to perform, but he needs a little bit more edge to be able to distinguish from his father. And definitely, I mean, Rey is just a once in a lifetime superstar. It like I said, it's not even fair to compare the two of them.
Yeah, with that, JJ, the problem with being that second generation is that you just get pigeonholed as his son, rather than what's your character, what defines you, what makes you different. And we're going completely off topic, but yeah, it is a struggle. You can see why people of that, if you go through generations, especially sons of promoters, have struggled, and probably why Bret Hart again is in section the most rules in wrestling.
I guess this is why it's so impressive when you have second and third generation talents, because you do always have that comparison forever. It takes a big body of work for you to ever break away from that. You have to do a lot to outshine who you're following on from, and be seen as your own man or your own woman, rather than, oh, this is X's daughter, X's son, X's niece, X's nephew kind of thing. So yeah, Dominic's got a long way to go, and I think you're right when you say he's not got it. I know that there's been this kind of story for a while now, is when's he going to turn on his dad and break away? But I think that the question is, like, what comes after that? He's his own man, he's out there, and I kind of think that he's lost a little bit of that shine, and I'm not sure if he's ready yet. But yeah, way off topic, but yeah, that's my view on that.
Exactly. When you go to cut a promo, I'm Dominic Mysterio, and nobody knows who you are, what you stand for, etc. But yeah, we'll save that for another podcast. Move on to the tag team title match next, which was I'll get the full title. It was Harlem Heat with Colonel Robert Parker and Sherri Martel. Don't know why, still to this day. I know there's a dropped angle from that was discussed, but we won't cover that. They successfully defended against the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags. They looked at their thickest here. The big boys. There was again big meaty men slapping meat. I thought Harlem Heat again as a look. Man, they looked massive. They looked so physically imposing. You forget Booker before he became quite almost leaner. He was jacked to the nines here. I think this was pretty much. I think their third tag title reign. If you remember, Booker's probably famous the year before in this run when he called Hulk Hogan a certain name in a promo on WCW, but I can't find it on the network. Funnily enough, but yeah, they successfully defended the titles. Really convoluted way of a finish. Sherri comes in, slaps him with the cane. Robert Parker's distracting, I think, one of the referees, and Harlem Heat escape. But what did you make of this? Because Lissy, I'd not seen many Harlem Heat matches from this time, but it was very, I'd call it like an 80s style tag team match.
Yeah, one thing about me, I love tag team wrestling, but like real tag team wrestling, like this level of tag team wrestling, not two people that they just throw together to fill a time slot or whatever. Like these two, I mean, think about it, Booker T, Stevie Ray, they're brothers. No one knows each other better than brothers. And then you have the Nasty Boys, been tagging together since, God knows when, and probably still are today. I think
interesting tidbit. So there you go. Yesterday, 1988, they won the Memphis Wrestling Tag Team Champions, beating Pat Tanaka and Simon Diamond. So they've been tagging together since 1987.
Insane. So I mean, just thinking about that, this is pure tag team wrestling, which we all know and love. Harlem Heat is just so athletic. I love that they incorporate so many kicks into their repertoire. Like you really don't see it. And even if they don't have like the super martial artsy background, it's just so fluid, and like they're just so long and lean that it really just adds so much to the match. And then of course, nothing is pretty about what the Nasty Boys do, but like you said, they were really, really big boys at this time. Can we just pause for a second and talk about Sherri? I love the Sensational One, or Sister Sherri, as she was known in this time. I mean, talk about a manager that, just contributes to the match from the outside. Like she's ready to get in there. She'll go at it with the guys. She's punching, she's kicking, she's breaking a cane over Sags's head. Like she's just once in a lifetime manager. And I mean, we haven't seen the likes of her since then.
I was listening to something with Bruce Pritchard a couple of weeks ago, and he said like Sherri was hands down the best women's worker of this era, and she was better than 90% of the men at this time as well. If you go back when she was in the middle of the Flair Hulk angle, when he came in 94, and I think Hulk ended up throwing her around a bit. Same in like 99 when she was the Macho Kings, when she was Queen Sherri. People forget she was so physical, and she was so embedded into so many of these angles. She was with the $1 Million Man around that time, just before as well. She was so integral, and it was so disappointing. She just kind of faded into obscurity pretty much after this. But yeah, Sister Sherri was, I think it'd been a stretch for most people, but not Sherri Martel, yeah. And she, another one that fell far too early. JJ, Harlem Heat versus the Nasty Boys, did that tickle your fancy?
To me, this was like, right, we're moving out of the workers stage. Harlem Heat were a little bit of the high flyers, and now we're moving on to what I think it was Bobby Heenan called it world clobbering wrestling. It was two big teams properly going at it. I kind of got the feeling there wasn't too much depth in this tag team division. I don't know, you guys might know a little bit more than me, but they were saying that the Nasty Boys were going for their fourth title. Harlem Heat already had it like 4 or 5 times by this point. I think they went on to have like 7 reigns. It just felt like this was kind of like they were hot potatoing it around these guys a lot, and there wasn't too much more beyond that, I guess. the NWO might have got involved a little bit and taken over once they kind of came to prominence. But yeah, it was a decent enough match, but yeah, it kind of felt like we're transitioning now away from the high flying spots into the big guys time, as we'll know from the kind of next couple matches that followed this.
The tag division WCW was really weird in the mid 90s. So, I'm a big fan of Crockett, late 80s. If you look at the tag reigns, there it was the Russians or the Rock and Roll or the Midnight Art and Tully, the Road Warriors. And then when WCW take over, it becomes like the Freebirds. It wasn't really the Freebirds, it was Jimmy Garvin. The Steiners and Doom apart, you had people like Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes, again, which Lissy's point, they weren't really a tag team they were put together. Then you had Ricky Steamboat, Shane Douglas. You had Marcus Bagwell, Buff Bagwell, and Two Cold Scorpio. Pretty Wonderful, which is Paul Orndorff, Paul Roma. Not really a tag team. But you had the likes of Harlem Heat, and you had the Nasty Boys, and you had Sting and Lex Luger, and you had the Road Warriors, kind of held it together before the Outsiders became champions and just kind of held the division up in the NWO era. So, and that was kind of transitioning here with the next match when you had Macho Man against the Giant. The Giant had just joined NWO last month. He was, I think, the fifth man after Ted DiBiase. X-Pac would join a few weeks later and become sixth. But Lissy, you've repping the shirt. This was very much a sign of the NWO's takeover of WCW around the time of the mid-late 96.
Yeah, first and foremost, I love that commentary team because they really made you believe it. Like, they made you feel like WCW was in jeopardy, and it's Bobby. Bobby is just amazing. He can call a match by himself, in my opinion. But thinking about that time, this is really when the WCW versus NWO, that rivalry was really starting and really picking up. And then NWO, they kind of turned the tides on them and they really took over the company. And, I love that they brought in Ted DiBiase, who's that money man, and it made it seem like they had financial backing, which is, obviously any enterprise needs financial backing, right? So going into this match here with, the Giant, Randy Savage can wrestle anybody. He really tells that story. Like, he basically just let them kick the shit out of him, many, many times, which is great. But he was always that good baby face that, he came out to the ring handing out Slim Jims. I'm not sure if you guys saw that, but just the cutest thing ever. I always loved those commercials growing up. But yeah, he just really, he was part of the crew that really put NWO over. I think this match was really the beginning of that for them.
Yeah, it makes it all the more weird that, just 4 or 5 months later we join. Him and Lizard both be part of the NWO. It's so weird. And I think the Giant had already been kicked out by then. But JJ, you mentioned longevity. We saw the Giant, the Big Show, Paul White, whatever you want to call him, on AEW pay-per-view 25 years later last week. So big man got. And if you watch anything from around this time, he was really athletic for a man his size. It's scary what he could do in the ring.
Yeah, he semi-main evented All Out a couple of weeks ago, didn't he? And here we are 25 years ago, semi-main eventing here. It's another parallel with AEW. Yeah, I was quite impressed with the Giant. Like you say, very athletic for a big guy. And we see him now and he can barely move. It's not a surprise with everything that he's gone through over the last 25 years. One of the things that I loved about this match was the little promo from Randy Savage right before it. It was he was going to cut the Giant down and he's only going to be 44 feet tall when I'm done with him. Yeah. Beautiful little speech from Randy Savage there. He's just so good. And the fans loved him. Like when he got him up for that scoop slam, they went crazy, didn't they? Like such a cool little spot. It was like Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant all over again. But yeah, the match itself kind of just petered out, didn't it? Just kind of disappointed because it's like two guys that could really go, and it just kind of got into this. Hulk Hogan's going to interfere, obviously, because he's got the match with Macho Man at the next pay-per-view. I think the whole kind of story with the Giant didn't make sense to me. The last pay-per-view, he had the title robbed off him by Hulk Hogan. Surely should be like a huge thing. Wants revenge. And he's just like, I'll just join the NWO. Kind of seems like a little bit strange to me. But
the weird thing for me there was the fact that, I mean, again, suspend your disbelief. He gets loaded out by Hulk, and then obviously gets attacked by the outsiders, and the referee can't see any of it, despite the fact it's clear. First of all, no count out, and then we've got to sound like JR on AEW TV. Come on, the rules. But you can see the fact he's been hit with them rolls. You've been in pins. Like,
think about who the ref was. Nick Patrick.
The NWO ref Jack, come on.
Right, okay.
Yeah. He was in with them.
Yeah.
That was their man.
Right, yeah, that's fine. Well, had he been announced as an NWO referee by then?
There was some spots, like they'd shown packages earlier in the night. I think it was when Mean Gene did like the story of the NWO versus WCW.
Good opening package for WCW as well.
It was very cool, and it like kind of taught me like what was actually going on, because I was kind of confused at the start. But yeah, there was like Nick Patrick kind of fell onto, I think it was Lex Luger, kind of accidentally chopped him down from behind, and which led to the finish of the match. So yeah, it wasn't explicit, but you know, anyone with half a brain could have figured it out. Jackie,
I clearly don't have half a brain. Never mind. We'll move on to the main event, which was the War Games. And I'm sorry, if you want proper War Games, go to 1987, July 4th in the Omni Atlanta. You had the Horsemen against Dusty Rhodes, Nikita Koloff, the Superpowers and the Road Warriors. But I digress. It was the Horsemen and Sting, which was Lex Luger, Arn Anderson, Ric Flair against the Outsiders and Hulk Hogan, the NWO, and fake Sting, I suppose, but that wasn't explicit again until later on. It started off with Arn Anderson against Scott Hall, and a good homage to it, because Arn Anderson starts pretty much every single War Games going back in the 97 and the Great American Bash, so a lovely hat tip there. We were saying again off air, it's so weird hearing Dusty Rhodes cheering on the Horsemen again, and this is in the Carolinas as well. It's really, really strange. But again, the Horsemen are so over, and that's why maybe Cody Rhodes was getting booed there when they came back there for AEW last month. But yeah, strange match. It was a really. I thought it was something to build to future pay-per-views. They're obviously building the Halloween Havoc. Macho Man gets involved. Elizabeth is there, and the Horsemen got their ass beaten pretty much, Lissy.
Yeah, I mean, they got a bit chaotic at the end, which is in true WCW fashion from then on. I mean, I think Double A I love him. He just always looks so good. I love that he started. I kind of set the tone for the rest of the match. And then, he got the shit kicked out of him for like the next couple minutes by Hall and Nash. But, things leveled out later. Random thing I noticed, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Nash, I think he was like stepping over the rope, and like with the cameraman, he got his leg caught in the cable. It was like in the background of things going on. It was just so chaotic at that point.
This is why Lissy's the professional with nuts, and me and JJ are here for the ride.
So anyway, I think the fake Sting, you could kind of tell that it wasn't the real Sting. Like he went for like the holler at one point, and it missed completely. So I mean, it was what it was, and I love that they brought Sting out last, and they're like, he's like, if you had just believed me, is that enough for you? So I think it builds it up nicely, because we know where Sting goes, shortly after this. Into his next character, which is just the most iconic characters in WCW period for me. And then I think at the end, Savage comes out. It's just all mayhem, and then Liz crawls on top of him and tries to stop. And they spray paint her back. And if you asked me when I was younger who I wanted to be when I grew up, it was Miss Elizabeth. So. Like, I just absolutely love her. She plays that really good damsel in distress, even had like the ref like sheltering her at one point. It was just a lot. And I mean, going back to Nick Patrick, if you guys heard in, the earlier stages of the matches, he's like, I can stop it right now. I can stop it right now. Like, he was just, so NWO from the beginning. So I think all the pieces were really coming together for the NWO at this point.
And from again, for the era as well, 1996, I think on the other side, Shawn Michaels, a super good guy, kissing babies and hugging girls and stuff. This was so edgy by comparison for the time. Nothing like this has probably been done in North America ever. unless you go back to something like the NWA, the Crockett in like 85, 86. But this was so far ahead of its time in terms of building heat and anticipation and suspense. And I personally had never seen the War Games match, and the way Sting's handling in terms of his overall character was so well done there. He comes and he looks $1 million, beats everyone up, and then says, like, is that okay? Did I prove? Is that me now? Walks off.
Yep.
And then the way Bobby sold it, like no one saying, if he was there, we'd have won. If we'd have had Sting till the end, we would have won. What's going on? Yep. So brilliant. JJ, what do you think of it? Because I'm guessing that's your first ever NXT doesn't count. Proper first ever War Games match.
I was disappointed. Yeah, you're right. NXT War Games and obviously like blood and guts matches, they built up to it all night. I was kind of like, there was like 40 minutes left in the pay-per-view when this thing kind of kicks off. I'm like, wow, we're in for like a big proper match here. Like, it's going to be an absolute war. There's going to be blood. And it was over in like 15, 20 minutes. Like, and more than half of that is the kind of bit before the match actually gets started. It felt like the beatdown afterwards went longer than the match itself. I was kind of disappointed by it. And I was really confused because I was like, wait, so Sting was like, that wasn't me. Now Sting's here and he's fighting against him. What's going on? And then the real thing, I was like, what the hell is happening here? I was so confused. But Sting just looked $1 million. And Ric Flair, when he came out as well, just looked awesome when he's coaxing Hulk Hogan to come over to the other side of the ring, and you just kind of see those two face off. It was such a cool moment, and you can see why those guys are just two of the four on Mount Rushmore. I think on most people's Mount Rushmores, they're just massive names in the industry and have been forever, really. So yeah, the match itself was kind of disappointed. The kind of after Brawl, the Miss Elizabeth bit was like the kind of only real emotion in it. It just kind of felt like a bit of a flat ending for me, which, considering kind of what a moment in time it was, just felt a little bit flat to me. Don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. It was just, again, War Games matches are all in the anticipation, the build-up anyway. And it's a bit like same with the Royal Rumble. Who's the next guy? And then he comes in and shines and whatever. And then you've got the peril of, nasty heels have got a 2-on-1 advantage, and then somebody else comes out, big cheer. But then once you've got all guys in the ring, it's by definition the match. It's the War Games, the match beyond. It's submission or survival. Somebody has to quit. And Luger passed out. He was in the Scorpion Deathlock and being choked. It was like, oh right, yeah. You expect like a big finish and somebody gets their head taken off or something. I think the first one, the Road Warriors got JJ Dillon, who's the manager of the Horsemen. They put him up on the Doomsday. They gave a huge Doomsday device and nearly took his head off. And he didn't have a choice then but to submit because he legit dislocated his shoulder. So that's, and then it's just kind of a come down from here. But it was kind of a stepping stone for Halloween Havoc, because that's when Piper then debuts a month later and then calls out Hogan to their main event Starrcade. So you could see that they were putting the building blocks in place, but it was, I think, by the WCW booking logic, you'd got your money's worth by then through the 4 or 5 matches in the build-up. So we can kind of, I don't want to say pull the rug under them by the finish, but yeah, you're not going to complain because you've got your money's worth and we can start flogging the next pay-per-view anyway. So I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think it was, like you said, it was a really full card. A lot of talent on there. And then I think, like you said, the ending was just a bit abrupt too, because it was just that, chaos. Sting comes, cleans house, leaves. Then, there was just a lot of men in the ring, a lot of movement. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, Luger's getting choked out in the corner. Okay, it's over. Oh, the ring's up. Luger's crawling down the aisle like Stinger, like he's like calling.
That was so weird, by the way. Such bad acting. He's there on his hands and knees. Poor Lex, man. His perm wasn't looking the greatest either by that stage, but physically he looked phenomenal. God, he really was a total package. Just if he had a little bit of charisma, bless him. But here we go. What do you make of the pay-per-view overall, JJ? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
I give it just about a thumbs up, yeah, just about. I give it like a 5.5, 6 out of 10, I would say. I'm hoping that there's going to be better stuff down the line with WCW that we're going to be covering over the coming weeks and months. Yeah, I think it's just like, you know what we said with AEW last week with All Out. It's like the ending kind of makes a pay-per-view. You know, there was some incredibly well-worked matches. That kind of block where you had Konnan and Juventud and you had the Jericho match and the Rey Mysterio match. They were all phenomenal. It was like bang, bang, bang. Here's your amazing matches, and it was like, okay, now we're going to slow things down. And it just kind of ended with two kind of meh matches for me, and yeah, like a flat ending. So kind of, I'll give it 6.5 because there were some really, really awesome matches on this card. But yeah, the ending kind of let it down for me, I think.
Let's say, would you get a rating out of 10? Or are you going to do different scale? You're America. Give us a grade.
I mean, I think JJ is a very tough critic. I would probably.
He's a hard man to please. Ask his missus.
It's like a B plus. I would say. I think like JJ said, the ending, the beat down at the end, it was a lot, and you're just like waiting for it to be over, and it just kept going on. So I think that kind of, like you said, it flattened it a bit. But knowing what we know now, we know that it was the build up. So I can, in retrospect, I can justify that a bit better.
The only concern is, again, this is Winston-Salem, this is Horseman country, and it was very WWF type booking where the hometown heroes get absolutely battered, and in terms of the town, they never drew in the Carolinas again pretty much until this day, 1998, which was Flair's return in Greenville, where the roof pretty much came off for a Horseman reunion. But they sold about 3 million of those shirts, so long term. Who's laughing now? We'll have a look. I'm with you. I'll give it about a B. It could be better, good action, but you can see that they were planning further things down the line. Tomorrow, I believe, this is going to drop 15th. We are going to review In Your House Mind Games, which has one of the most slept-on main events in WWF history, in my opinion. Have you ever seen Mankind v. Shawn Michaels at Mind Games? Either of you two?
I don't think I have, no. I don't think I have. It's a little bit too early for me, I think.
Look at Lissy saying, how dare you? I feel insulted
by
that
you?
Slight. It's amazing. I remember I had the 1996 Year in Review VHS, and I still remember the spot where I think Mick Foley, Mankind, set a chair up in the ring, and Shawn hops into it and super kicked him off the top rope. It's phenomenal. But we'll see. JJ, you will have your eyes opened later on in the week. But until then, guys, it's been a pleasure. Fingers crossed we've, again, put it in a nice light. And we will carry on with JJ's education of the 90s later on in the week. Guys, hopefully speak to you then.